Hi, William.
Good afternoon. How are you, Anna?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you. What about you?
I can tell you're fine because your smile tells me that you're doing pretty well.
Yes, oh, thank you. William, I smile almost all the time. In fact, some people even tell me that it's not normal if someone is as happy as I am. I don't know if it's normal or not. We will see.
It's normal for you, and it's better to be this way than the other way.
Yes, actually, this is what I also think. I'm very happy to record an interview with you. And for those of people who are going to watch us, my name is Anna Litovkina, and today I'm going to speak with William Benkő. I already prepared an interview with William in March and another one in April. Before I start this interview, William, would you like to say just a couple of sentences about yourself?
I'm also a positive person, much like you, Anna. I believe we're responsible for our own experiences, and I mean that in every way. I believe we're responsible for our personal lives, for our personal success, for our business success. It's easy to look for someone else to blame, but it's far more productive to look inside, fix whatever issues we have, and then move forward. It's easier to go from, to quote John Maxwell, it's easier to go from failure to success than from excuses to success. And so I'm happy to take responsibility for my failures so I can learn from them and get them out of the way as soon as possible.
Thank you. William Benkő is a businessman. William Benkő also created an academy, the name of which is Speak Academy. It's in Hungarian and in English language. And William Benkő, also years ago, it was about 10 years ago, you created a Toastmasters Club in Hungary. So it was the first.
A little more, it's more like 15 now.
Oh, okay, or about 15 years ago. Okay, now after this introduction, today, William, our discussion is about the recent situation in the world with coronavirus pandemic, also the situation with you with coronavirus pandemic, about coronavirus crisis, and also like what should we do, what should we concentrate on. William, before we start our discussion, and you haven't got questions from me since you told me a few days ago that you would like this interview to be spontaneous. So there will be a lot of questions for you. Maybe some of them will surprise you. So the COVID-19 pandemic has turned the world upside down. Has it also turned your life upside down?
Yes. It's taken away a sense of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So many of the things that I would have done earlier if I wanted to see somebody face to face, it would have been no question, call them on the phone, I'll be there at 10, wait for me. No such thing happens now. I haven't had a face-to-face business meeting in 3 months. I'm sure that some of the business discussions have suffered, hopefully not a lot, but I'm sure they have suffered because of the lack of the human touch. The other challenge that I feel is that even though I'm positive and optimistic that we'll get through this, I don't know how optimistic I dare be that we won't have a second wave. So how far ahead do I want to rush being bold and confident that I can continue to do or start to do what I used to do, only to expose myself to a much greater risk? So I find myself listening to doctors more than I would have 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can understand you, because actually I also have very similar worries. And one of them is, just for example, I have a pass through a fitness center, and I haven't been through my fitness center since this outbreak. Because I also know that like if I go together with a bunch of other people to the sauna, or for example, if I do yoga together with some other people, with many people, and so on. So, and actually this is why I permanently ride my bike, so twice a week normally, or sometimes even 3 times a week, because this is what I can do for my health, and I do it alone. And yes, and what you talk about, for example, some of contacts face to face. Yes, I also miss this so much. Yesterday, I met 6 of my friends. In fact, we organized a kind of gathering together in a restaurant. So, and for almost 3 months, we met in Skype, or maybe with the help of Zoom, once every 2 weeks. And it was very different to see them now in reality. And it was just like, what? I can see you. I mean, I saw you. I mean, my friends last weekend on Sunday on Zoom platform, but it was very different to see them in reality. William, another question is, this pandemic has shown that the way people on the globe have been living their lives is not sustainable for our planet any longer. So as they say that this pandemic will leave a lasting imprint on the world economy, and it will also teach us a number of lessons. What lessons has it taught you?
The lessons that I've learned are that making a change is more important to do it short term than medium term or long term. But the big lesson for me is, are we as a population, as a world population, able to make that change? Mm-hmm. We killed our economy regardless of which country we're talking about. And we did wonders for our environment. The air improved everywhere where business shut down. And as we try to come back to not a sustainable, but some level of business where people can go back to their jobs, anything we do right now is not good for the economy. So we don't have those equations figured out. Oh, they may exist on paper, but if you need me to start delivering food to you, then 99% chance I'm delivering that in a car or a truck that uses fuel, fossil fuel, and not electricity. You'll say, well, you need to go out and buy an electric truck. And I'm saying, great, but how? I just went through three months of complete business shutdown. I have no money. I need to restart my business, which means the only thing I have or I can afford is old technology. And we don't have this figured out, because everybody I saw who's returning to work, going back to work, is using the same mode of transportation for the most part. In fact, we both live here in Budapest, and the number of cars on the road have increased as people have shied away from public transportation. Is that better for the environment? No. Is it better for me short term so I don't catch COVID? Yep. So how do I balance these two? How do I fit them into the same equation? At what point do people stop looking at their personal risk and look at the global risk? How do you compare those two risks? How do you compare a COVID risk with a global warming risk? I don't know. As an economist, I was never taught and don't really have a good feel for how, maybe theoretically in a textbook somebody knows, but it's certainly not happening on a day-to-day life. And we see it today, 2020, June 22nd, there are a lot of cars on the road polluting the air because they want to live.
Yes, yes, and since maybe the beginning of March this year, I have been riding a bike twice or 3 times a week, and I remember now what it was like in March and April and even in May, and I see what it looks like now. And what I see, what is happening nowadays is that many people I mean, what people are divided into two groups, at least. Maybe we can talk even about more groups. So there are some people who think that they can return to the same style of life. They can do absolutely the same. So they behave as if nothing had happened. And for example, last week I was somewhere in the center of Budapest. It was on Saturday night, and I saw so many people there. It was really frightening for me. Some people were wearing masks, but otherwise, so I just thought, okay, so they treat the situation that now they can get together. And there are some people who are afraid of doing anything. They're afraid of going anywhere, so they just stay at home. So, and sometimes I ask myself, just if I don't watch any TV news, if I don't listen, if I don't watch anything about the amount of people who die or who suffer from this, I mean, to which group do I belong? And what should people who are really, who feel that they're responsible not only for their own life, but for the lives of people who are next to them, and not only for them, but for the lives of the globe, of the country where they live, of the city where they live. So what can be done?
One area where I find that we're lacking is that it's not obvious to everybody what the rules are. Specifically, I went to a grocery store yesterday, and there were 3 kinds of people waiting to pay at the cash register. You had people who had their masks on correctly, so covering their mouth and their nose. You had people who only covered their mouth. You had people who wore no mask at all. And you had nobody. So all 3 cannot be the right approach. So if we're expecting and it's mandatory for somebody to wear a mask, then we need to enforce those rules, because many people feel like they are above the rules. Airlines are very strict. It seems like they're very strict about ensuring that they have a mask and they have to wear it. So first is we need to be real clear what we expect, and then we need to point out to people, the way you're wearing that mask is not acceptable. Because I'm looking around in a grocery store, and if I'm trying to figure out what the right behavior to follow is, I don't have one obvious role model. And if I don't have one, I'm going to choose the easiest one. And the easiest one is not to put the mask on at all, which can expose somebody who is not me. Maybe I'm somebody who's already carrying it, but asymptomatic. I'll be able to get through it, no problem. But whoever I infect isn't so lucky. So the one area I would expect a little more muscle from, and nobody likes that, right? I understand being the person in the grocery store and the shopping mall who has to go over and tell people that that's not acceptable. I mean, I know what little kids do is if you say you need to do this, they'll do it for as long as you see them. And then the moment you turn your back, the mask comes off, or just to prove to you how strong they are, they'll take it off their nose.
Yes, and we know the proverb that rules were made to be broken.
Right.
So from this point of view, many people just do not follow these rules.
No, and there's no consequence. So we're all in that grocery store, and a person goes in, does their shopping, and leaves. They were seen by employees. They were seen by security people. Nobody says anything. So in effect, we have told them that this is okay.
William, a few days after this quarantine situation started in Hungary, or lockdown started in Hungary, similar to many other people, I was also shocked, but it lasted maybe just for a couple of days, not longer. And I decided to create my own rules. So my own rules, because it's very hard to live without rules. And just like it was really, it was obvious that we need some new rules. And I know that some of my friends, they also created their new rules. For example, some of my friends, they didn't do any shopping for themselves, so they rather paid some people. So I decided that this is what I will not do. I went I did some shopping myself.
Okay.
And there were a couple of other things. So I decided that I'm going to wash my hands. I mean, I always wash my hands. So for me, it was not different from the previous time. I decided that I'm going to ride a bike, doing a number of other things, no fitness center and so on. And as soon as I established this set of rules for myself, it became very easy for me. My question is, what about your rules? So what rules have you created for yourself? Or, I mean, what rules did you create for yourself at the beginning, and how frequently do you reconsider them? Because when the situation when the situation changes, we reconsider them.
So much like you, I set my rules up to stop going to the store,
Mm-hmm.
Arrange for the food to be brought to the house, didn't go to church, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Still don't go to church, even though they've tried to restart the in-person services. And my rules have to be for me. So I'm still very peculiar about meeting people. I'm okay with people in the family, but I don't meet people who are outside the family.
Mm-hmm.
If I am invited somewhere, I'll only go somewhere. If somebody invited me for coffee, I'd only do it outside.
Mm-hmm.
And these are my rules. So if somebody wants to meet with me right now, then I'll follow their rules or my rules, whichever is more strict from my own health standpoint. So if their rule was mask but only inside, and mine was mask and outside, I'd follow my rule because mine is more strict and ultimately safer, if I can say that. I have caught myself shaking hands a couple of times.
Me too, yes.
3 months was not enough to break me of that habit. But I only shook hands with somebody who I really knew before the pandemic. So somebody, if I ran into you, I would not extend my hand out to shake hands with a total stranger. And I'm comfortable going forward doing that. If we think through how clean people are, how clean their hands are, how clean the handles are on the metro or on the tram, I mean, who knows? It's probably better we don't know how dirty they really are. And it's time that we got a little more serious about it. And I'm okay with that. And those are my rules. Nobody has to agree with them. Eventually we'll start to accept each other's rules and say, well, that's the price of meeting Anna. You have to wear a hazmat suit and pay for your own coffee. And okay, so if I want to meet with Anna, but what I do believe is important is that we're consistent about it.
And consistency, because like consistency, but sometimes there is a problem. Circumstances change cases or alter cases. So for example, when do you reconsider them, or when will you reconsider them?
Give me an example, like shaking hands
or meeting someone, or just when can you decide that, for example, now you can do it? So who will tell you, who should tell you that now like the coronavirus pandemic is over and you can do everything? Who will you believe?
What I sense is it's going to be a little bit like when the mobile telephones first showed up. So it was much cheaper to make a phone call on a public phone. And when I first got a mobile phone, that I said, okay, I'll only use a mobile phone if there isn't a pay phone, a public phone, within 75 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Then that number got smaller and smaller to the point where I would pull the phone out automatically, and without realizing it, it flipped, and then I would never use a public phone because it's dirty and sticky and who knows who used it. And I think here what's going to happen is we won't even realize it. There'll probably be some friends, closer friends, that will, without us expecting it, just reach out and hug us. And you're not going to, that's going to feel real strange to push them away. And so you're going to hug them and nothing will happen. And I'm expecting that this will break down our resistance. And for somebody we're not in a good relationship with, it'll be easy to say no. But for those people that we would normally hug, we're going to say yes. I'm going to say yes.
Okay. I know that you have had quite a number of different businesses, and when I first recorded an interview, you said that you were a business guy. And I myself, I'm not a businesswoman. I teach for I'm at State University, so it's relatively easy for me. Now for 3 months, I have had classes and exams online. So I haven't had to decide on anything. So what they say that nowadays it's just like a pandemic crisis is crisis, and in crisis people have very different ideas. In crisis, it's like what is the proverb about necessity is the mother of invention. So people in crisis start thinking in a different way. For example, what they say that the mindset changes. So my first question is, has anything in your mindset changed?
Yes. I've become far more cheap. Cheap would be so I think twice or 3 times or 4 times, do I really need to spend that money?
Okay, so you mean cheap if you want to buy something or anything.
If I want to buy something. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, do I need to buy that piece of furniture now? No. Mm-hmm. Do I need to upgrade the car now? No. So everything that I would normally have to make as a big investment or a big expense, it was easily delayable because my life didn't depend on it. You know, you're asking us, I'm saying the virus, the world is asking us to go into a situation where we don't know when it's going to end. And the first thing you can do, you can't always immediately grow your incomes. The first thing that you can do is reduce your expenses. So I found myself being much more sensitive to spending money. Number 2, I found that it's not just because you're able to go online, doesn't mean that you're able to get the same amount of money for online products as you would in offline products. I don't know if you experienced that, whether or not you had courses that you teach where people pay you.
No, I haven't started doing it because I'm employed by my university, and what I do is that in March and in April I had quite a number of free webinars. They were free. I decided to do something for free, but I do not do it for money. I used to deliver some workshops for money, but I haven't done it online yet for money.
Right. Right. It has proven to me that people are willing to pay for experience more than they pay for content. So you could give exactly the same information, same 30 minutes, but if you're in person, you can justify charging for it more. But if you're online, people expect to pay less. Now, perhaps it's one of these things that you do where everybody's been affected, and so I'm not going to charge them as much because I'm not going to pay as much. One thing I changed that I learned from the Unicredit Bank, I'm happy to use their name, it's not a paid advertisement, but I read an article and they said they had initiated a policy where they would immediately pay the invoices that were sent to the bank for services or products or whatever that the bank sold. Not 30 days later, but immediately, as their way to help out whomever those suppliers were. And I looked at that and I said, what a great way to help. And so I said, I'm going to do the same thing. If I get a bill, I'm going to pay it immediately. I'm going to surprise the hell out of that person that they get paid the same day they issued the invoice. That's my little contribution to them, because the worst thing you would want to do in this is to start to do things and then people long pay you. So that instead of paying on within 30 days, let's say they go to 60 days, you're now in a complete state of confusion. Am I going to get paid? When am I going to get paid? And I would much rather do something nice for people than the other way around. I bought it, I owe it, I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah, that's great. It really helps a lot. William, I know that one of the things you deal with is Speak Academy.
Right.
And what I have experienced nowadays, since I myself also sometimes have these free webinars, or I study quite a lot, so I attended a number of online courses. What about Speak Academy? Has anything changed? I mean, obviously, you had to change quite a lot of things immediately because you cannot have workshops now. Can you? I mean, offline.
Right. One of the missing ingredients is having the ability of a small group to influence one another. So if we just show up as squares on a Zoom window or screen, that's not the same thing as being in the same room with them.
Yeah.
And being able to look at a person's whole body and communicate with the way that I am listening to that person makes big difference in how that feedback is received by the speaker. So the level of intensity is not as good. It's also more difficult to keep people engaged. You know, if you're in a classroom, a small room with 10 people, everybody sees what the other person is doing. But here you can turn your video off, you can turn your sound off, and even though it looks like you're in the meeting or the class, I have no idea what your level of participation is. And it becomes almost like an honor system, you know, where you expect people to pay for the can of Coke that they took from the refrigerator. You don't have a cashier there. You just expect them to put the money in the basket. You're expecting people to be adult about it enough that they need to participate. One recommendation that I have is if you do online classes, charge for them up front. So whereas on a in-person bio class, I would work with somebody who had a difficulty in making payment or need a little extra time, I'm okay to do that because I have some amount of control over our relationship. But in an online environment, get the money up front. Because if they don't show up and they're going to look for somebody to outsource the responsibility of why they didn't progress as fast as they wanted to, you're going to be the easy choice. Well, obviously, on a system isn't any good. That's why I'm not advancing. Why would I pay Anna for this class? And they'll come up with clever excuses why not to pay. avoid that difficult and unnecessary conversation by getting paid up front.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and what I see now that there are so many classes online,
Right.
Offered by a number of very good universities, and many of them are for free. And I'm just thinking about people who make their money on this. And for example, if so many courses are offered for free, how can people who really need money, how can they earn money?
They're going to have some kind of name going into the crisis. So creating a name during the crisis is not impossible. You're just going to have a product or a service that is so incredible and so unique that you're able to ramp it up. It's like Zoom, right? I had never heard of Zoom. Not sure if you had.
I have been using Zoom for about 4 years.
Okay, well then you're way ahead.
For me, it was very. It was absolutely fine. So I told my dean in the university, and I told my head of department, so that let us start using Zoom. So and just immediately after the lockdown happened, immediately our department started using Zoom.
Then you're way ahead. I hadn't heard of Zoom, never used it. If I needed to do an online, I do FaceTime, I do Skype, or every once in a blue moon, I do a Google Hangouts. But Zoom never crossed my radar screen. But Zoom had the right product at the right time, and they were able to scale and grow significantly. Mm-hmm. Having a online shopping platform before the crisis like Amazon, great position to be in at the right time. Starting an online shopping platform during the crisis, it can be done, but it's going to have to be so incredibly unique, something that Amazon doesn't do. Mm-hmm. And I don't, making money on new products during the crisis is probably not as realistic as trying just to be there to serve. And once we get through this crisis, then people hopefully will remember who helped them, and they'll turn around and help you.
William, do you have any idea when we will be through this crisis?
My personal prediction is October. So I think we'll have a little bump. We'll get panicky. We'll get serious about wearing the masks and following the rules. And then sometime around October, I think we're going to start to be able to go back. And next time the virus breaks out, I do not believe that we will shut down the economy like we did, for example, in the United States. I think they'll throw I'm using the term blanket loosely, but they'll go and do whatever they can to protect the senior citizen homes. So where those who have the highest risk of dying from COVID, they'll do whatever they can to protect them. But there are some people who most likely have a strong enough immune system and are of the right age that they can defend themselves. We're not going to be able to, we simply won't have enough time and money to protect everybody. There will be a group of people who will be expected to protect themselves, wearing a mask, washing their hands, using hand sanitizer, and staying away from large crowds.
What can we do in order to turn crisis into opportunity?
This crisis is real. So I'm not a flat earth kind of person. I don't believe that Hollywood filmed the moon landing. So I believe that happened. This crisis happened. I'm not a believer that it's a conspiracy theory and that the governments got together and did this because, I don't know, they had nothing better to do. This is a real crisis. And what it shows us, it showed me in my businesses, is that I need to be more diversified that as if another one of these, either this one or another one of these rolls out, that I have tools in my business portfolio that allow me to take advantage of a situation that could arise again, right? I've got one of my businesses, it's a clinic. We'll need to be better prepared with a wider array of services that we can offer online, just in case the government does what it did last time and says that there are certain services that you will not be allowed to perform. So from one day to the next, a good portion of your business is now illegal. Had that thought ever really crossed our mind? I don't think so. You know, I've been involved in businesses where we have business continuity, we have multiple sources of electricity. So if the big line coming in on one side of the house gets broken, there's another line back up on the other side. And if both of them stop producing electricity, there's a generator there that can start to produce. So there's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. But having to deal with putting on, not being able to leave your house, I doubt was on many people's radar. It is now. And we need to learn from it. So it's like if you have a friend who is dying of lung cancer because they smoke, and we see them going through that, it would be wise to stop smoking. Learning from their example before we get into the same situation ourselves. And I think you're going to get, I don't know how many business owners there are in the world, but you just increase the number of people who are thinking in alternative sources. You know, as a private individual, people are going to need to think about having multiple streams of income. Most people don't have multiple streams of income. They have one.
Yeah.
And if that bank or that company stops manufacturing and I lose my job, I'm in trouble. But what if you had your job and an online, and you taught a cat class, and you had written a book that were being sold through Amazon, and you had something else, and you had multiple streams? It's no guarantee, but your odds just went up.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, this is why, I mean, not this is why I have a number of different degrees in folklore, in linguistics, in psychology, and coaching, just in case if something doesn't work, maybe I can do something else.
Right.
William, what can be done in order to prepare for similar situation? I mean, we are not over yet, but just in case, I myself, I like living my life the way that if something happens, I would like to learn my lesson from this. So what can I do in different ways? So what should the world do? How can people prepare for a situation like this?
My recommendation, the very first step is to find somebody who is also has also made the decision that they need to prepare for that new world that just showed its ugly face. And get around a few people, not 20, but 5, where you can coach each other and be each other's accountability partner and source of encouragement for people to follow through with whatever ideas they may come up with. Let's say that you're a business person and you've got lots of experience in accounting, and somebody says, well, you should do online accounting class. And you say, yeah, that's a good idea. But then when you get home, oh, nobody's going to buy my class. I'm just a boring person. And it's so easy when we're detached from our source of encouragement to fall into yeah, it would work for somebody else, but it's not going to work for me. So you know this as a coach, how important it is for you to be surrounded with a group of people who are shaking their pom-poms, cheering you on, Anna, do it. You said you're going to do it, Anna. Did you do it? And hold each other accountable. And that's the number one. And right now, this is serious. Right now, we don't have the luxury for the next few months until we have a few of these alternate sources set up. We don't have the luxury of wasting time and hanging around with people who don't want to make any changes. We've got plenty of time down the road, 6 months, 9 months from now. Right now, we need to be focused on setting these alternate sources of revenue or services up very quickly.
What you have just mentioned, this is what the University of Practical Psychology, from which I got my second master's degree, it offered us just a couple of weeks ago a new program. So for the graduates of the university, they offered a program for 1 more year. I have already started doing it, so 2 weeks ago. And what is important that we coach each other, because all of us are coaches and psychologists, and we meet now every Saturday, at least in summer. Right now there are 7 of us, but I know that in the autumn a number of other people will join, and it was just absolutely fantastic. Last Saturday or 10 days ago to meet some people. We did not really discuss the situation with virus at all. We were talking just about our goals. So what are our goals for summer? What can we do? And accountability. So it's very, what I see nowadays is that I see that in order to preserve the world, in order to preserve the planet, people from different countries, people from different cultural backgrounds, racial backgrounds, regardless to their beliefs and so on. So I think that they should somehow unite. And we know this biblical proverb, a house divided against itself shall not stand, or we know that it has been used in American history, and nowadays I'm using it because I have published 2 books on biblical proverbs in Hungarian language, and one of the fields of my research is proverbs. So, or united we stand, divided we fall. So this is my sense somehow that people should unite. But if I think about countries, which we have some countries which are very rich and some countries which are extremely poor, if I think about people who are just like very rich people and very poor people, so poor people might want to unite with the rich people, but what about rich people? So they might not want to do it. So, and now I think that just like the governments, the countries and people should do these steps, but do you have any ideas what can be done? Because just like if I think about myself, I'm someone who is very small in comparison to a number of other people, but still I have social networks, still I have a YouTube channel, still I have my students, I have my relatives and so on. So I think that just like I can do something, and I have started doing some very different things from what I used to do before that. So what do you think people should do? How can we save our planet?
One area that I'm impressed with is what a young guy is doing in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. He's of Hungarian descent. He attends Princeton University, and his company is called TerraCycle, and then they just spun off, and if I get something wrong, I hope nobody gets upset about it, but they are looking for ways to reuse plastic. Mm-hmm. And they come up with a solution, a temporary solution with using UPS, and that when your, for example, shampoo plastic bottle is empty at the end of the month or whenever you finish using it, that and the other plastic bottles you put into a UPS bag, and UPS picks it up and takes those back to a location where they clean them and refill them. So instead of recycling which means that we're having to take them through one more process, we're making it very easy for the people to participate. I mean, how much easier it is to have a bag, put the empty plastic into it, tie the string, and put it out in front of the house at the end of the month. A friend of mine is living in Kansas City, and he's doing renovations on his house, and you can rent a dumpster, a container, what they call them here in Hungary, but a dumpster, and it's a bag. Mm-hmm. So I go to the equivalent of Obi, let's say Home Depot, and I buy this bag for $20. It's incredibly strong. I can carry it in my hand. And then I open it up. It comes in different sizes. And I can fill it with all sorts of junk from the yard if I'm cleaning out the attic. So I can put a lot of stuff into it. And there's an application on the phone that I download to my phone. And once this bag is full, I just on my smartphone send an order to the company, and they come and they pick up my bag. It is so simple. I decide about how much I'm going to have. And where I think most governments tend to fail is that they see changes at a policy level, but they don't see the changes at an application level. Mm-hmm. There's a branch of economics in the United States called choice architecture, where I need to align choices in such a way that people choose the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. When they first started recycling, and they put these yellow silos around neighborhoods, but they were not close to each other, so you may have to walk 10 or 15 streets to get to one of those. I had a friend of mine look at me and with disgust on her face say, they don't really think I'm going to walk 10 streets to recycle this bottle? And I said, yeah, they are. She said, well, I'm not walking 10 streets. And not only is she not walking 10 streets, lots of people are not walking 10 streets. Is that the right thing to do? No. Should everybody walk 10 streets? Yes. Will everybody walk 10 streets? No. And so instead of spending our time trying to come up with reasons why that person is bad, we need to make it so damn easy to recycle that plastic bottle that they do. I don't want to be right about why they don't. I need to set it up where it's easy to do. When they in the United States, they went to unleaded gas from leaded gas. That was a change to benefit the environment. They didn't open up new gas stations for people who needed unleaded gas. That would have been a monumental behavior change. They put the same pump for gas at the same gas station, but they changed the size of the nozzle so you couldn't take the old leaded gas nozzle and put it into the unleaded gas hole. But you didn't have to change your behavior. Did it make the transition to unleaded gas really easy? Yeah. Were there arguments and people getting upset? No. So we're good about this. We, as a group, as a society, we can figure things out and help each other. For example, when we were building the ATM company, in the beginning, one of our problems was that too many of the cards that people used to get the cash withdrawal, too many of them were left in the machine and ultimately captured by the machine, and it was a big headache. Those were taken to the bank sent them back to us, and then a few days later, the tourist or whomever would come to our office and pick up their bank card. Now, it was easy to say to the customer that, look, you're an idiot. You should have pulled your card out of the machine. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that they went to the machine to get cash. So in their mind, when they got the cash, why they went to the machine was over. They did not go to the machine and end that in their mind by withdrawing the card. They got their cash. Mission accomplished, they left. So all we had to do, what do you think, Anna? What was the fix?
I mean, the sound, the beep, that your card is over there.
We reversed the order.
At first you think, yes.
So the only way the cash came out is if I pulled my card out.
But do you know,
right?
Do you know what happened? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you know what happened once with me? Once I left my cash there, so and I never got it back. It was years ago, not too much money, maybe 10,000 or 20,000 forints. I don't remember, but simply I took the card out without cash. But I guess it's better to leave 10,000.
Okay, but normally, and I don't know if it happened, that would be fixed by the system, because the machine, if you didn't take the cash, it notices the cash isn't taken, it pulls it back in and reverses the transaction.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because that was the time when I realized that a few days ago it was in a different city. I didn't do anything about it.
Right, but you understand what I'm saying is that there are ways to get people to do what we want them to do. We just need to set up the order of doing it, or the financial incentive of doing it. Mm-hmm. Right? As long as a plastic bottle, a PET bottle, has no value, it will stay on the side of the road, because we don't pick up things that have no value. But if it had a 5 or a 10 cent value, mm-hmm. there are people who would pick it up, because a lot of plastic bottles at 10 cents would mean a warm meal for them, something to drink. Mm-hmm. We're not, as a group of people, we're not dumb. We just need to set it up where people will do it. Mm-hmm. And I believe that there's a solution for almost everything that we need to do.
Thank you, William. William, is there anything I haven't asked you yet about this topic?
No, I would make a general recommendation, yes. And I make the recommendation based on what I tell myself. So now is the time for action. So we've all been through it. Time is going forward. The world is going forward, and we need to take responsibility for our own futures, but we also need to be willing to take somebody along for the ride. Signed off with by saying, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else too. Not everybody has the same amount of momentum, the same amount of preparedness, the same number of contacts, the same business savvy, the same access to good programmers. And saving myself is a great feeling, but saving somebody apart from myself may be a better feeling. And maybe we can use this crisis at a grassroots level to bind us together and forget about all the problems that we were having and political disagreements. We all need to eat. We all need to feel like we're needed. And we all need to have some kind of goal that we work toward. And we also need to be encouraged. We need to believe in ourselves. But if somebody's having a tough time believing in themselves, then they need to borrow my belief in them. What a great way to help those around us. what a great way to build the momentum that'll get us through the next crisis. This could be a magnificently powerful source of inspiration and innovation if we allow it to be. Or we can choose to just me, the whole process, and worry only about myself and not help anybody else. The choice is ours.
Thank you.